Hey there, I'm Timothy Roberts. In this video, I'm going to go in depth on the two old Ks that I got in my shop recently for modification. I'm going to talk about what they were when they came in and what the customer wanted out of them. And then I'm going to show you a before and after clip of these cymbals. And you guys can let me know what you think. So if you checked out the video I dropped last week, it was a video covering the topic of vintage cymbals. What's the truth about them? What's the deal with them? Are they worth the exorbitant price that they go for? And just giving you guys a little bit more information about bronze and how it functions. And that video was a lot of fun to make. And I made it because I got these two cymbals into my shop for a modification. They both are new stamp old Ks, which dates them between 1966 and 1977, round about those that era. And they both are in great shape. They don't have very many, if any, issues going on with them. But they were sent in to me because the drummer wanted something different out of them. And they had sentimental value because they were given to them by the former teacher who is no longer with us. And they wanted to take these cymbals and send them to me so that I could get them in a zone that was closer to the way, closer to the kind of cymbal they would like to play in their gigs. And they play in New York City. This drummer plays in a lot of really small clubs and does not need cymbals that overpower or cymbals that are too bright and pingy. Was really looking for nuanced, complex, interesting, intriguing sounds to come from these cymbals. So let's take a listen to what these cymbals sounded like before the modification, and then I'll tell you guys a little bit about what I did, and then we'll show the after videos. So as you can tell, I have a heavyweight one and a lightweight one. The heavyweight one is this one right here. It is 22 inches, and when it came in, it was 3,010 grams, which is fairly medium for today's standards as far as a 22-inch cymbal goes. But this would really be considered more of a heavy ride for the 60s. It's got a lot of weight on it, which means it is going to have a pretty bright stick. It's going to have a little bit more ping to it. It's not going to be as crashable. And because of the extra weight, it's going to be a bit stiffer. So all of those things are not what this drummer wants. And so what I did to it was I lathed it entirely from the underside in order to preserve the coveted stamp and also to preserve the beautiful patina that it has on the top surface. And then after that, I added an additional patina to it. And what this does is it can help control some of the spread, give it a little bit more of a dry stick sound. This gets into a topic that I cover in another video, but the idea of cymbal volume, and that's something that gets thrown around a lot. Like drummers will ask me, can you make a quiet cymbal? Can you make a loud cymbal? And oftentimes I think we're confused about cymbal volume and what makes a cymbal loud or soft. To me, when you shave a cymbal really thin, you allow it to be activated at a lower volume. You allow it to open up with a lot more spread and wash. And this can actually be perceived as a louder sound than when it has a little bit more weight on it, which can control some of the crazy spread that can come off it at low volumes. Sometimes I'll get guys send me their cymbals and say, I want this thing super thin so that it can be really quiet and dark. And I always counter by saying, maybe we'll start by leaving a little bit more weight on it, and that way you can see that it'll retain a little bit more control as you're digging in, and it won't open up and be too splashy at too low of a volume, which just means that you have to be more intentional in how you play the instrument so that it doesn't overpower. So back to this cymbal, what I did was I took the original 3,010 gram weight and I shaved it down to 2,350 grams. Now for a 22, this would be considered thin by today's standards, but a lot of the indie cymbal smiths, we make cymbals that are a little bit thinner than the typical sound you get from the mass manufactured companies. So for me, 2,350 grams is a medium thin weight. That's kind of a prime weight if you want something that can cover a wide dynamic range. You can get a sound that won't get too overpowering and open up too loud, too quick at a lower volume, but you also have something that you can dig into and it'll cut through. It's not going to get too splashy and lost in the mix. So let's take a listen to this cymbal, the after clip, and then I'll show you the before clip again so you can get a sense back to back how these sound, and you guys can let me know what you think. And finally, we have the other 22, which is a lightweight cymbal that has a very tall profile. So tall profile cymbals, umbrella-shaped cymbals, have a higher pitch. They're usually a bit stiffer, but they also ring out with this chime-like tone that can be a little bit difficult to control. And the drummer, when she sent this cymbal in, she really wasn't a fan of how hard it was to contain it. It felt like it opened up too much and it was a little bit too overpowering. It muddied some of the other elements of her kit, and she really wanted to kind of rein it in a little bit. So considering that this is 2190 grams for a 22, this is a thin cymbal. It's very bendable. It has a lot of life that, you hit it at a low volume and it really opens up quickly. So this is a more challenging modification, a much more limited modification. But essentially what I did was I only cleared the very outer layer of the patina, basically that layer that kind of seals the cymbal. I wanted to open up just the tiniest bit of the bronze underneath, and then I added my Tributary Series patina to it, and then finished that patina over top to seal it. And what this does is it just helps contain the sound a little bit. Now this playing example, this before and after, is going to be a lot more subtle, so you're going to have headphones and really cue in to hear the difference because it's pretty minimal. But it does help a little bit just to contain the overall sound and make it so that it just doesn't overpower so easily. Last thing I'll note before I do the before and after of this cymbal is that both of these cymbals had an undersized center hole in the bell, which means they don't really fit on most modern cymbal stands. So the first thing I did was I just drilled out the center hole wider so that it would fit on any cymbal stand. That's a very easy, simple thing to do. If you have an older cymbal like this and you want that done, you can do it yourself, but be warned, there are things that can go wrong. So if you can find a professional that can do it for you, that would be recommended. But it isn't too terribly difficult to do, and it doesn't ruin the playability of it. It might ruin some of the collector's value that it would have if you want to sell it in the future, but just keep that in mind when you're considering whether or not you want to widen the hole on one of these. Last thing I'll say is the bell on this thin 22, just like the one on the other, is a little bit oblong. It's shaped weird, which is very characteristic of old Ks. The way that they would press the bells is they would heat them up, pull them out of the oven, and use a sledgehammer to hit a die that would press the bell shape into these blanks. So it'd be a stack of blanks, stack of bronze. They'd smack it. Whatever was at the top would have the biggest bell, the most formed bell. Whatever was at the bottom would have the most shallow bell, and it would be possibly a little off, not quite uniform all the way around. So you can get a lot of different sounds from it, but you might not want that. So that's something to keep in mind there. Let's listen to the after of this video, and then I'll pair it again with the before, and you guys can let me know what you think. All right, so that's that on this old K modification video. Please let me know what you think down in the comments below. Subscribe, hit the bell, do all of that fun stuff, and we'll catch you guys next time. I'm Timothy Roberts.